Hi there, and welcome to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein, and we're talking today about why play matters, how it impacts kids' brains and emotions, and some really great ways to fit it into our hectic schedules with certified parenting coach Ayanna Allen. Check it out. Ayanna, I'm so glad you are back with us. This is, it's a really fun topic on the surface, but when you dig a little bit deeper, you realize how important play is, right? It's such a crucial part of a child's development. Why? Why is it so important for a child's development?
I think that whole idea of it being a benefit is like, yeah, we know kids are supposed to play, and I think we
They're supposed
just
to have
make that
fun,
assumption.
right? All the
Yeah,
things.
and we
Yeah.
make that assumption because it's like, what else do kids do? Like this is their lot in life at this stage is to just play. But there's a lot of us who don't really know the specific benefits of it, and so did it. And more importantly, too, like it's not just when they're babies and toddlers. This goes all the way through teenage
Hmm.
stages as well. But then you get into kind of like defining what play really is. But before we get there, I'll just go over some benefits. So, on a very physical note, you get a lot of benefit as a child when playing because it's allowing you to exercise your coordination, your motor skills. You're cultivating a healthy relationship with the environment, and all of those things really create habits for you as you get older. So the things that you are exposed to at an earlier age allows you to embrace appreciation for some of those things. So that's just the physical part of it, but then there's also emotional and social and cognitive. Emotionally, you're able to really kind of deal with some big emotions in a very low risk state because you're just playing. So it allows the child to really practice some of the emotions that they would have and make the play more digestible for them. So, for example, if they're angry about something, but they like to play out, children love to play pretend and love to act out and things like that. So they can do that in a very digestible way so that they can process their feelings of anger or their feelings of fear or their feelings of joy. And being able to do that during play is really critical for their emotional development. And then, of course, socially, it allows them to be empathetic, also to negotiate, also to set boundaries. And so, again, this is low risk because it's very like you're just playing. They have a lot of freedom with play.
Cooperation comes to mind too, because,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and I also think the importance of being able to play on your own, playing with friends, siblings, obviously that is extremely important, but isn't it just as important to learn how to play and have fun on your own?
Absolutely. There's benefits to all of it. I My 6-year-old is quite unique in this way. We don't see a lot of children do, at least not within my close proximity, where she is able to play by herself most of the time with the very a matter of fact, a lot of sometimes she prefers it. And she's a social kid, like, she likes to play with other children, but her, next oldest sister is 8 years older than her. They don't have a whole lot in common in terms of play. She likes to play with me too, but, a lot of it is I think I've given her an environment where I've limited some of the things that we rely on, like video games and iPads and TV. She still has access to those things,
Mhm.
but they are limited in a way, and they've been limited in a way where she's had to get very creative with the things that she has, her regular play toys, and she'll take things out of the recycling and just like create. And I think that she's now developed a love for it because she realizes there's so much freedom and imagination that comes with that. And so I think that that's also something to note and consider that when you actually like give your child like nope, you know how they say like, oh, you buy your kid all these toys and they end up playing with the box that the toys
Yes.
came in. So yes, I do think that there's a benefit to playing independently because it allows you to learn more about yourself and understand like what it is that you like. But of course, there's always a benefit, big benefit in playing with other children.
You know what also struck me too is, and you mentioned your next oldest child is 8 years older. When it comes to independent play, I have found in my experience, birth order matters. I was heavily involved in the play and the setting up the play with my older 2 and just, you know, life. My youngest is 6, his older brother is 6 years older than him, and then my daughter's 4 years older than him, that he is so much better at finding, like, random things to do than the older kids were at his age, so,
Yeah,
I think there is a little bit, is something to say about that.
sure.
You know, when it
The
comes to
attention.
the
You have
what?
that first baby. You have that first baby, they have all of your attention.
All of it. Like,
Yeah.
they breathe, they sneeze, they wobble on their feet, and you're like, just you're all over it. So much different with the third. But anyway, we talked about a little bit about the types of play. Independent play would be one, right? But then I kind of think in terms of you have structured, where what does structured look like, and then versus unstructured, and kind of talk about the benefits of each of those types of play.
Yeah, so I'm actually not a big fan of structured play.
Okay, so
Um,
what is structured play? Like,
okay.
how would you define
Yeah.
it? And why don't
So,
aren't you such a big fan?
yeah, okay. So, I mean, structured play is really when you have like a specific plan for your children. And you know what? Let me retract that. It's not that I'm not a fan of it. It
I
does
get
have
you.
its place. I do appreciate it. Um, and again, it depends on the stage and it depends on the objective. But structured play is just as it sounds. You, the one in charge, has created a space that has boundaries and limitations around it. And also an intention, a very clear intention, like this is what I want you hopefully to get out, or these are the things that I want you to benefit from, by this. So an example could be if you're all we're doing is working with blocks. That's all we're doing for this. This is all we're going to play with for this. And then, that's going to ignite something in the brain that works with like engineering or building or architecture or whatever those little brain neurons that that would kind of go towards that part of learning, like you're exercising that. And I'm all a big fan of that, so that's why I'm like, let me just retract that. That's not necessarily what I mean. But then you have unstructured where you're really just like, here are all the things, pick what you want and play with what you want and let your imagination guide you.
Mm.
And I'm a bigger fan of that depending on the stage. So early on, I think that's more important for children because, again, this gives them the opportunity to learn more about who they are, what they're interested in. They're not focusing on what's right or wrong. They're not focusing on if they did something right or wrong. They are in play mode. And play really just means that you are in the moment. You're in the present moment. That's all play really. So whenever we're playing as adults, we're in the present moment. We're not thinking about the past. We're not thinking about consequences or rewards. We're just enjoying the moment. And so that's why I really enjoy unstructured play. There are some benefits to structured play. And of course, all structure should be in place when it comes to safety. So I think that goes without saying. Like, absolutely, definitely want to have safety in place. But beyond that, during COVID, when I had both of my children at home and I was homeschooling my older child and the younger one, she was, just they had shut down daycare. She was home with me. So I did implement structured play. And I structured it like, okay, I feel like if you do math and reading at the beginning of the day, then, I had this, theory and doing some reading, like this would be most benefit at this time. So I did structure things in that way. But I also made sure that I created a good chunk of time where I did not tell her what to do.
Mm.
So
And
that's
just kind
that's
of let
my
her
definition.
figure it out. There's so many benefits when it comes to that. What about thinking in terms of indoor versus outdoor play? Here we are, we're going into
Let her figure it out.
uh
Yeah.
fall, which is a gorgeous time to be outside, but for us in New England, we're going into winter where you have to, at least for me, have to be very intentional about going outside. So what are some of the benefits of indoor versus outdoor, or Is it kind of all the
Yeah.
same?
Yeah, it's definitely not the same. I do think that there is much more benefit in outdoor play, just because there's a lot less predictability. Things are more unpredictable outdoors, and you get to discover a lot. It's not a controlled environment. I mean, if you go on a hike, you don't know what insect is going to grab your child's attention. And if you have the time and the space, then you can let them, ask questions about that insect, or let's take a different path this time. Or, oh, look, it started raining. What is that doing to the ground?
Mhm.
Like, those are some examples of outdoor play. And it really just eliminates a lot of indoor distraction like electronics, things like that. I don't want to sound like I'm anti device because I'm not. But I am very conscious about how much time, we as a collective spend. And I do find that when
Mhm.
we're outdoors, the moods are better, the endorphins are increased. I mean, this is physiological evidence out there that says like when you go outside and you have oxygen in your face, like it's just there's a lot of benefits to it outside of just cognitively. But there are some benefits, of course, to playing indoors. So I don't want to discredit that, especially now that weather's going to
Yeah.
be changing. It gets darker soon. So I live in California, so weather's not that big of a change, but it does get darker sooner. And so we're not staying outside and going to the park into the until 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. We're not doing that anymore. Um, so, a lot of what we do in the house and what I find is really useful is a lot of board games. I don't restrict it to just the rule following. I'm kind of a rule stickler, so that's been some work on myself. But playing chess, playing Monopoly, playing Uno, all of those puzzles, all of those games can be played indoors, and they're actually quite relaxing.
So you say relaxing. I will say Uno gets very intense at my house. You have to really be, are we ready to pull out Uno? Because I have 3 highly competitive kids. I'm actually feeling some anxiety thinking about our last Uno match.
Oh no.
But that's neither here nor there.
Well, depending on the setting, because this is true. Like I've definitely, as a
Oh my
larger
gosh.
family, but I'm saying, and I'm only speaking from my experience with just me and the
Totally.
little one. If it's just me and the little one,
You
it's
mix in the
like
older kids though, Ayanna. Come on now.
no, yeah, you mix in the older kids, some
Oh,
adults,
it gets
then,
intense.
and I'm gonna tell y'all right now, even when it's just me and my little one, I do not
No
let her
way.
win.
No
So
way.
no, I don't let her
It's
win.
good for them, right? Is there like sort of a magic formula? And maybe it's sort of just a rough estimate by age, but is there, sort of a guideline on how much of the day we should be encouraging our kids to play?
Well, honestly, I don't know that we have to really encourage them at all to play. I think what we as caregivers and parents do is encourage ourselves to give them space to play,
Mhm.
but we don't necessarily have to go play, go play. I mean, there are instances where depending on if they've been given that space early on, but if they were already into like it play is such a
Yeah.
big word. It can mean so many things. So a lot of times if we don't like the play, then we want them to play something different. So we're like, I need you to go
Yeah.
play outside versus play video games or something like that. So that's kind of feel like there's some layers to that question, but I think as often as they can, I think you just let them just because there's so much learning that comes with play. I mean, this is the only part of their lives where they can play without having to worry about some of the adult responsibilities that we have to worry about. And as we all know, time
It
flies so
does.
fast. And there's so much to gain from playing that honestly it's like I'm very grateful that the schools that my daughters go to are not big on homework. They're very big on schoolwork and they're very big on engagement. And of course, if assignments are not completed within school, then they have their responsibilities to take care of it. But what that means to me is when they come home, they're
Mhm.
playing. They're in their world and they're doing what they want to do. And then yes, they have household responsibilities and chores. Um, But outside of that, I'm like, yes, go have fun,
Yeah,
play.
and just allowing them to just be. You know, kids are so overscheduled uh today that, it is okay for them sometimes to come home from school and just
Yep.
chillax is I don't know if anyone still says that, but that's all right. Hey, let's talk about just in general, like what is the role parents should have in play? Because y- you know, of course it's important. Like we should all be having fun with our kids, right? Like that seems pretty basic. However, like how involved should we be? And what if we just can't play dolls one more time? Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
So talk about the role of parents in play and what that looks like. Obviously, it looks like different things at different ages,
Yeah.
but then also helping us negotiate, navigate when maybe we just don't feel like it.
Yes. And I have
Okay.
actually said that to my youngest. I
You
just don't
have?
want
Oh my
to.
gosh.
I've told her that.
Yes.
Yes. I don't recommend doing that all the
No,
time,
I know. Right.
but I think of playing, especially when, especially as she gets older. She's 6 now, and as she gets older, and this also applies to my teenager, but she's kind of used to things now. She's off. That's a whole nother
Oh,
topic on
listen,
play.
listen, I've got one of those at home too.
Yeah, that's a whole different
Okay.
topic on
Okay.
play. But with the younger one who was once a toddler very recently and is now
Yep.
growing into, babies are so used to just getting whatever it is that they want when they want it, because a lot of it is a need. And so we just kind of cater to that. And then they grow up a little bit older and they're like, wait, but I want this and that. And you're like, hold on, hold on, hold on. That's not a need, or I'm busy, or whatever the case is. So I think on one end, there's something that as parents we would benefit from, is if we really discovered why is it that we don't want to play. And
Mm,
the discovery may not take that long, because it could just be that we're tired, we worked all day and we're exhausted, or because we have to cook, or whatever. But sometimes we don't have anything else to do and we still don't want to play. And I think that that would best serve us to understand like what our relationship was like when we were children in play, how many
mm,
adults engaged in play with us, what kind of impression did they give us in terms of like adulthood, and is it okay to play as an adult? And then also, what is your play language? Like, what is it that you enjoy doing? Because we all, as adults, we all still play. We don't maybe necessarily label it that way, but anytime that you can kind of just do something for hours or get lost into something, and that could just be having a conversation with a close friend, it could be going on a walk, it could be reading, it could be, playing a board game or whatever. And so I think that when we understand our relationship to play and our play language, we can better see our child's play language
mm,
and find the way that they intersect, because it is important that we connect with our children during play. It is important that they can see us as something more than just the person in charge. And that is a way to connect. And that actually builds a very strong relationship as you and your child get older in life. They have those connected pieces where it's not just you dictating what they do all the time, but it's you coming down to their level. It's you submitting to what it is that they want
mm.
sometimes. So, because children, they very rarely do they have the opportunity to boss people around. So when they have a chance, they're going to take it. And if you're the parent,
So true.
and yeah, if you're playing, they're like, okay, no, you do it this way. No, okay, you do
Yes.
it that way. And so, it requires us to kind of exercise some of our own restraint and being like, okay, which I've done that too. But then sometimes, very rarely, but there has been a moment where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that.
Mm,
How about we do this? And that teaches compromise. And that
it's
also
true.
shows my child that I'm a human being and I have wants and needs too. And I don't want to do that right now. But again, I would recommend more than not. I would recommend acquiescing to what your child wants,
Yeah.
because they really don't have a lot of control over their life, and this gives them that space so that they can practice making decisions, they can practice leadership skills. So I would, more times than not, I would do whatever it is that my child wants me to do, but on occasion I would ruffle some feathers and I'd say, "No, I don't want to do that right now." And then she'd have to come up with something else, or I'd come up with something else. Yeah.
Well, you talked a little bit about play language, and before we got on this conversation, we talked about like I like doing Legos. I like playing Legos with the kids because you do kind of get lost in the pieces and how they fit together and creating something out of it. You like Play-Doh. So, you know, maybe on those times which we can all relate where we're tired, we don't really want to play dolls or whatever it is, again like coming up with, you know what, I'm not up for that right now, but what if we sit and play Legos, what if we sit and pull out the Play-Doh, so that you know, to your point, that you're compromising, you're working with them, and doing something that you enjoy too, and they'll see that, they'll notice that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And sometimes, oftentimes I don't even say anything. I just start playing with something different. I just pull it out. Because they have tons of toys that they don't even look at. And all I have to do is go in the toy box and dig at the bottom and then find the toy. And I just start playing with it. And before I know it, I have company. Before I know it, I have someone who wants to play with me. And I haven't had to say anything. Because this is, if you look at it, this is how children get together and play. There's one child that's playing in the sandbox. They don't even know this child. They walk over, they start observing. Maybe they're invited or they invite themselves. Can I play? It's all about being intrigued. So yes to that. And also I just wanted to make a point too, is that most of the time that I find, because you noted that I like to play with Play-Doh, and I do, but most of the time I have to tell myself to relax and play with the Play-Doh. Being able to unplug, being able to
Mm,
do something that is childlike and not have to do something that is adult-like, even though I do that for the rest of my awake hours of the day. Once I start playing with it, I don't necessarily want to stop, or I
mm,
have to set a timer, but it really takes for me to first, immerse myself into that environment, and then I get into it. So a lot of it is self-talk. A lot of it is like, I want her to be creative in this way. I want to encourage that for her. So she's got to see it in me. Let me sit down and play. And before I know it, I'm like, I'm making all the food, right?
oh, that's right, making a hamburger, right,
Yeah,
making the
yeah,
broccoli, yep,
that's
mhm,
right.
that's right. No, it clearly benefits not only for the the child, but for us as parents as well. Are there, are there signs to watch out for that kids may not be getting enough play, whether it's structured or unstructured? Just anything that sort of is like, my child's overscheduled and just
Yeah,
needs that play, for instance.
yeah. I think one of the probably more obvious signals is when a child is
Mm,
acting out. And acting out means, it can mean a variety of things, but the things that come to my mind is maybe they are very rambunctious, or they are um, easily angered. They might be physically trying to hit someone. Those things can lead to a lot of different. There's a lot of different roots that can come from that, right? But one of them being play is, we all have energy that we need to exert, and children especially. And so this is one of the major benefits of outdoor play, is because there's just so
mm,
much space. And I think particularly for boys who tend to have a lot more physical energy, if your child, and this also goes for girls too, but if your child is in the house and they're just like messing with stuff all the time, and you're like,
mm,
dude, just sit down, or like, why are you touching that? You're not supposed to. They are trying to figure out a way to exert that energy. They're not
mm.
getting enough play. You take them outside and give them freedom to play, not structured, but free play.
Y
So that's
Yeah,
just one example.
so thinking in terms of, and this is sort of like with it that we're changing seasons, it's gonna be colder, but, are there ways that we as parents can create play-friendly environments, especially in, even in, like, a small living room or living space?
Yeah. That's tricky. It depends. And I think this really speaks to those who have limited economic means. And it's like I live in a really small space. I do not have a backyard. Um, and over the years, my neighborhood has changed. So I don't even feel as comfortable taking my children down to the park that's very close to me.
Mm.
And thankfully, and with full gratitude, I have a car that works really well. And so I can travel and I can take them places. But of course, that requires planning and time and a lot of things. So it really depends on how you're situated. And I know right now with our economy, a lot of parents are feeling the stress of just not having. They just don't. A lot of them don't have it. So I can only speak to some of the ways that I've tried to get around that. And for one of the things that I had started to implement was like every week we'd go on a hike. So on Fridays, we would go on hikes. And we live in California. So, we live in Northern California. So it gets a little bit
Mm.
chilly, but nothing compared to the rest of the country. So we still, if it rains, it's not a big deal. We can get some rain boots. We can get some jackets and we can just go and explore. It does require us to push past our comfort zone when it comes to that kind of thing. But if that day works for me and if I can be consistent with that and maybe just take out an hour or two, then that's something. Um, on a daily basis, there's different programs, neighborhood programs for those who don't have like a backyard or space like that where they can, take their children. Also, having a support system. So, using whoever it is in your circle who maybe has more space and just go use it. Talk to them, figure it out, barter something. Hey, if I bring lunch, can we come hang out?
Mm.
Or something like that. Because I don't believe in like just using people without reciprocating, but I do believe in the strength and the benefits of a village. And so if you don't have the big yard, what do you have? Use what they have. They have the yard, they have
Mm.
the space. Let's figure it out. Let's do so. I'm big on on that kind of stuff.
You mentioned too a little bit earlier in our conversation about just screens. I mean, it's a constant battle for so many of us as parents. So, how can we encourage the choosing imaginative play over screens in a screen saturated world?
Yeah. Well, this is one of the only times that you'll hear me say that this is when I limit access to like certain things that you would play. I know I talk about like freedom of play, but that doesn't mean you get to choose whatever it is that you get to do. What it means is I'm not going to tell you what to do. I might just tell you what not to do.
Okay, fair
So,
enough.
I am in that really thick, especially with phones. So we need to have another conversation about that.
Yes.
Um, my 6-year-old does not have a phone. She will not have a phone for a very long time. But my 14-year-old does have a phone, and
Mm.
we have a TV. We have one TV, so I don't put TVs in various rooms. We have one iPad, which is mine's, and so you have to come to me if you want to see it, and you have to tell me what it is that you want to watch, and all the things. I am very serious about my limits on those. Sometimes I'm okay with a relaxed, let's eat while we watch dinner. Most of the times I'm not. There's just way too many studies that show that there are declining health benefits, or there are no health benefits to eating and watching TV on a regular basis. But I get to choose when I'm going to be relaxed about that. But I'm always very thoughtful regardless. And so the thing um, about devices, TVs, phones, tablets, your children will be so angry with you when you take them away. But that's just the addiction talking. That's
Mm.
just what it is. It's nothing more. Don't take it personal. I have been through this a few times and I have 100 more times to go probably, where these symptoms will persist, where it's like, your child is angry with you. They might say something that might be hurtful, or they're just like, they don't want to mess with you, or whatever the case is. That's just the drug talking. Once they
Mm.
get over their withdrawal, they're cool. They're fine. And depending on how long they've been able to use the device, yeah, then that might impact how long it takes for them to get over it. But you have to think about what it is that you want to invest in your child. not how they feel about you in the moment. So I will shut something down. I'll just say nope. And I'll be that parent in that moment, like,
Mhm.
nope. And that is how you ignite imagination, because I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just going to tell you what not to do. When I tell you what not to do, your task as the child to figure out how to entertain yourself. If you feel bored, that to me is opportunity for creation. I'm not gonna like belabor you with those words because kids don't want to hear that when they're mad. And so I don't need to lecture you on that. I could just tell you, nope, you can't do this. And then eventually, after they get upset and they know they have to come to you, well, can I do that? Yeah, you can do. Listen, you have a whole entire room. You can do whatever it is that you want to do, except take my tablet or my phone.
Well, I love that line that boredom is an opportunity for creation. Yeah, love that. Ayana, if there was one takeaway for us parents when it comes to play and our kids and the importance of play, what would that be?
One takeaway I think would be, as a parent, give some thought to and ask yourself, like, what games come easily to you to
Mm.
play for each stage. Play in terms of like board games and things like that, or whatever the games are with your littles. That's one thing. But then when you have older children, play for them could be, you know, going to the mall or something, or going, I don't know. It could be
Well,
something that's a
even
whole
kicking the
nother.
ball around, it's soccer. We have a trampoline, just jumping on the trampoline. Yeah.
Yeah, or it could be, and for teenagers, it does. This is obviously, sorry, this is not just one thought, but for teenagers, it does require some more
Yeah.
creativity. I do think that's for a separate podcast,
Mhm.
honestly, but because a lot of it is just creating space, and then eventually they kind of get into it. Whereas younger children are way more apt to just try something different or new in terms of play. But that would be my main thing, is like, as an adult, in order to connect with your child, because it's so important to connect with your child, and that is their learning language, is play. So if you can do that, figure out which games, which activities are tolerable for you. It could be baking. You could be baking with your child. If you like to bake, let your child get messy. That might take some exercise on your end in terms of being okay with that, but just understand that it's gonna get cleaned up.
Mhm.
You'll be all right. So that would be my
I love it because
takeaway.
that
Find something that you
yeah, it's doing our own self-reflection as a way to help us bond with our kids. That's
yeah.
awesome. Ayana, thank you so much. I want to also mention that we'll have more resources on our website, wgme.com/raising me. Always such a pleasure. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for having me.
All right, so let's ask ourselves, what games come easily to you? What do you enjoy? Do that, or find a version of that to do with your kids today. Not only does it help them, but it can help you too. Thank you, of course, to Ayanna for her expertise, and to you for listening to Raising Me. I'm Adrienne Stein, and this episode is edited by Megan Littlefield and produced with Nate Eldridge. Please follow Raising Me wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, we really appreciate a positive rating and review, which helps others to find the message. Wherever you are, I hope you learned something new and get to take a little time for you.